Hello and welcome to Calls. This is the 2022 Open Championship Data Dive Show. A couple of things before I forget. There is a full schedule again this week of shows. I admit to mention that last night. Got wrapped up in starting the stream late and then trying to catch up with the Open Championship research. But there is a second tournament this week. It is the Barracuda. So there will be a full show tomorrow. The initial research, data dive, and DFS tactics for the Barracuda will happen tomorrow. And then the Open Championship DFS tactics like normal on Wednesday evening. So I wanted to make sure I started off the show tonight reminding you that another full week of shows is happening this week thanks to 2 straight weeks of double tournaments. And then a very sincere thank you to you all. YouTube just notified me that I am at 1,000 watch hours, and I wouldn't be able to do this and enjoy it and produce the content if you all didn't keep coming back and watching and listening and supporting. So really, I do appreciate it. It means a lot to me. Thank you for continuing to watch and listen, tune in, support, and have a little bit of fun as we dig into the analytics of golf. So hopefully we'll make it another 1,000 hours, and I will have some better advice for you starting this week after the atrocious Scottish Open that I had. But we're going to move forward to the Open Championship, so let's get right into it. All statistics provided tonight and every night are from fantasynational.com. It is the best tool out there. It is going to make you a much smarter gambler, a much better DFS player. Go check them out. It's simply worth your investment. In the description to the videos, there are links to my social media. This is where I place my betting cards, which again will be another double tournament betting card out there. And then normally I post research regarding the tournament or tournaments leading into some of the shows. But with Fantasy National not having any data around specifics around, say, strokes gained approach at the old course or anything to that effect, and with an Open Championship rotation or rota of courses, it's not a consistent thing. And then Fantasy National also doesn't collect Barracuda stats because it is a modified stable format. But we'll get into that tomorrow. So no research this week, but I will definitely be picking that up next week. Generally try to post that on Mondays. And if I find even more stuff, we'll tend to put it out on Tuesdays as well. But follow me at the links in the description if you want to be or see some of that research and to see my betting cards for the week. And then finally, we're live. Chat is open. Want to hear from you all. Have you all looked at the odds boards? How many wagers, if any, do you have in? I've got quite a few already. I was pretty happy with, I mentioned I had 1 wager in last night, and that player's odds dropped by the time I woke up this morning, so I felt pretty good about that one. Got quite a few win wagers in for the Open. Probably need to finalize it a little bit, maybe get a couple of top 20s or whatnot in there, but I think the betting card for the Open is pretty well done. But I want to hear from you all. Who are you all thinking? Are there some prices that you think are just ludicrous? I think there's a couple for me, and they were just almost auto bets because you don't get these players at those prices. So I want to hear about all that, and then any DFS leans you have as well. So let's dig into the data for the 2022 Open Championship. And we start by going to Fantasy National. Hopefully, there we go. The camera focuses in there. These camera settings should be consistent now between going from a web page or, say, Fantasy National view and Excel, although I don't have any Excel sheets for you tonight. Last evening I had the whole composition and the estimated proximity from Course Visualizer or Pro Visualizer. Don't have that tonight. If you want to see that, it's in last night's show, the Open Initial Research, so make sure you go check that out if you want to see it. But we're going to start here at Fantasy National. And there's a couple of things we definitely need to look at tonight. They have absolutely updated the field. So most notably, Trey Mullinax, who won the Barbasol, he is now listed in the field. So all, I believe it's 156 in the field this week for the Open Championship are now in Fantasy National. Definitely have Windfinder up. We're definitely going to take a look at that. And I have also brought up the 2015 Open Championship leaderboard when Zach Johnson won here at St. Andrews. Even though that's the only year of statistics we have in Fantasy National, so we don't want to put a whole lot of effort into, or a whole lot of weight in just that 1 year, but it will give us at least an idea of how St. Andrews played at least that year, and it's pretty consistent from what I'm gathering from other experts and pundits or whatever in the area or around golf gambling and golf analytics. So we'll start off with a little bit of review from last night. So I've set this already to the beginning of the PGA Tour season, so dating back to the Fortinet. And if we need to expand out, we will. But first thing we're going to do, last night I was using a lot of difficult. And one of the reasons why I've brought up the leaderboard, I'm starting to change my mind a little bit on the difficulty of St. Andrews. But one thing we definitely know, it's Scotland and England. It's going to be windy. So who are the best players in the wind? So since the start of the PGA Tour season, your top 10 players in the wind are Justin Thomas, Cam Smith, Sung Jae, Joaquin Niemann, Cameron Young, John Rahm, Shane Lowry, Scotty Scheffler, Max Homa, and Mito Pereira, which is surprising. Let's see, Justin Thomas and the Scottish Open is in, so I definitely want to take a look at that. I'll have that leaderboard up here a little on later we can look at, but don't want to get too terribly far into it. We'll take a look at that and say the 2015 Open Championship leaderboard kind of side by side and do some compare and contrast. But there is a look at the top 10 performers in the wind, just overall, and then definitely want to take a look at strokes gained approach in the wind. So your top 10 strokes gained approach players in the wind are Cameron Smith, Russell Henley, Max Homa, Victor Hovland, Tom Hoagie, Keegan Bradley, Justin Thomas, Hideki, Kevin Na, and Aaron Wise. A little bit of overlap here, but not too much, to be honest. You've got Cam Smith, first in approach, second in total. Makes a whole lot of sense. You've got Max Homa, third in approach and ninth in strokes gained total. And then Justin Thomas, seventh in approach, first in strokes gained total. But otherwise, no one else is top 10 in both. Now, definitely Keegan Bradley deserves an honorable mention. He's 11th in strokes gained total in the wind, 6th in strokes gained approach in the wind, so a very, very honorable mention. Aaron Wise deserves one as well, 16th in strokes gained total, 10th in strokes gained approach. And then the last kind of, two or three, to be fair, Mito Pereira, 10th and 13th, Scotty Scheffler, 8th and 14th, and Shane Lowry, 6th and 16th. Which, speaking of, if you are in chat or in the comments, I mentioned all last night I was playing around with the camera settings and such. Let me know, is this is this readable? Is it scrunched? It's kind of hard for me to say as I'm working on things on the back end how it comes out forward facing, if you will. So again, just let me know, and I can adjust the settings if I need to for you all. But this is kind of uniform between this view and Microsoft Excel. So hopefully the view works for both. But anyway, there is a look at the metrics that I wanted to look at in the wind. I am going to go to the Scottish Open leaderboard and see if there is anything that we can gather from here. So, does not look like it's going to help us much. it was very difficult, and I thought it was going to be very easy, so that's what killed me last week. Hitting the fairways were easy and difficult depending on the wind. Don't have any bent green grass or anything to that effect. I was hoping I could see some green speeds and whatnot, but I will come to the strokes gained, the leaderboard, and see if we can find anything in here. We'll come to fairways and greens, and we'll start covering that a little bit later along with the 2015 Open, as that's some of the data that we can gather. So let's see, elsewhere here in the overview tab or the umbrella tab, nothing really to do with course length. It's sitting right in the middle at 7,300. I think on the scorecard it measures 72.98. So nothing to do with short or long. We've looked at wind. Don't really want to look at par 72s. Nothing there. Now you can certainly argue for green speeds, Velcro and average. You're definitely not going to see fast. I think it's safe if you just want to look at Velcro, but I can't confirm that it's only Velcro here at St. Andrews and similar style events, Open Championships, Scottish Opens, and whatnot. But we do know it's bent. So what I can do is on bent greens, let's see, how many rounds is this? 26? Okay. Back to the Fortinet. I don't know if that's going to be enough, especially if we do just Velcro bent. Probably not. Oh my gosh, no. So we're going to have to go, I think we went back to what, maybe January 2020? Did that sound right? So if we go back to January 2020 and bent Velcro, no. Okay. Well, I guess we're going to have to take off the Velcro and just go with bent. And then we'll bring this back to the start of this PGA Tour season. Actually, we'll go back to January 1st of 2021 just to get a full gauge here. Sorry, I was hoping that I could narrow down on some Velcro speed bent greens, but doesn't look like we're going to be able to. Do most guys at least have now 20 plus ish rounds? Yeah. So just going to get a full view here of bent green performance. Yes, it'll include last year's Open Championship more than likely, but just want to get a gauge, a full picture view of the putting world. So your top bent green putters since January 1st of 2021. Those players are Patrick Cantlay, Rory, Christian Bezuidenhout, Seamus Power, Ian Poulter, Justin Rose, Keith Mitchell, Mackenzie Hughes, Sam Burns, and Jon Rahm. So good stuff here. If we want to narrow that in, let's say we want to come to the last calendar year, say August 1st, and see if this changes much at all. You definitely don't have as many rounds, obvious reasons, but let's take a look at the top 10 here. So the top 10 in the past calendar year, from August 1st forward, it's Patrick Cantlay, Rory, Christian Bezuidenhout. I think that might be the top three from the going back to 1-1. So Cantlay, Rory, Christian Bezuidenhout, Victor Hovland, Sam Burns, Jon Rahm, Keith Mitchell, Ian Poulter, Justin Rose, and Tony Finau. So I do recognize Burns and Rahm. They were 9 and 10. I don't think any of these others here were. I don't think Hovland was. I know Mitchell wasn't. Poulter wasn't. Rose and Finau. I want to say Mackenzie Hughes was up there for bent putting going back to 1-1. So he's still close. Maybe Seamus Power was. I can't remember. Sorry, I just can't remember. But there you go. There's a look at who is perhaps a little bit hotter with the putter. Rory makes a whole lot of sense. His win in the fall at the CJ Cup was on bent. Now I don't think those were. I think those were fast. let's see if we can really narrow this in and at least go with average speed bent greens. Like, there's just not that many on tour. Like, even if we go back to January 1 of 2021, there's probably just not that many. 13. I'll go to 1/120 just to see if we can get some kind of modicum of amount of rounds for average speeds. I mean, 18, it's not really enough. I mean, you have maybe 15 guys that have double-digit rounds. So to me, I just don't think it's going to be worth looking or diving in deep into that data if you're not going to get a whole lot of rounds from people anyway. So there's a look at the putting, and we're definitely going to look at some more putting later on. We took a look at it last night in the 3-putt and the long putts, but we'll definitely scrutinize that some more. But I think, honestly, that might be... Actually, no, there's one more thing. So when when fairways are easy to hit, who are your top off-the-tee players? So when fairways are easy to hit and there's not enough rounds, I mean, there's only been 9 rounds measured. Now, perhaps the Mayakoba, perhaps the Corrales, and the Puerto Rico, events like that, the Zozo, perhaps those had easy to hit fairways, but we don't get that data since they are not affiliated with ShotLink. So I'm going to have to bring this back out to say 1/1/21. And do we have at least some more around 18? Okay, but there's at least a few guys here, maybe a third or a fourth of the field that have double-digit rounds. If I go back to 1/1/20, might be a little too far back, but I'm trying to get a lot or enough rounds here for people to... I mean, there's still not really all that many, maybe a fourth. So I'm just going to stick to 1/1/21, and some guys just have few rounds. But when fairways are easy to hit, and they are easy to hit here at St. Andrews only because players know that they have to find the fairway, so they are very conscious of hitting irons or rescues off of these tees, especially if the wind picks up. You know, they're not going to sacrifice much distance with the type of true links that St. Andrews is. So your top off-the-tee players, when fairways are easy to hit since January 1st of 2021, those players are Bryson, Mito Pereira, Tony Finau, Cameron Young, Victor Hovland, Rory, John Rahm, Keith Mitchell, Luke List, and Hideki. Okay? John Rahm, maybe a little surprising that he's only 7th. Bryson's probably not a shock to be number 1 since he is generally the longest hitter in professional golf, driver, irons, and all. But like Mito, he's not really known for distance. Tony Finau is, Young is, Hovland is. All these guys are pretty big hitters, with the exception of maybe Mito, and he's not short by any means. He's just very, very good at hitting fairways, and has some distance. All right, so that's definitely something that I wanted to look at, because we know these are going to be easy to hit fairways, and we know that. I'll come to the course breakdown here. And the reason I had to bring in the stuff to Microsoft Excel last night, obviously not all of the holes are 476 yards exactly. It's just the way they've got it coded in Fantasy National. But the average scores are correct and whatnot. But just to bring you down here to the point at hand, driving accuracy, almost 70% here, whereas the average PGA Tour event is 62%. Guys just put an emphasis on finding the fairways. And then another reason why I don't think greens are going to be the statistic to look at on that tab. I mean, these are huge greens and double greens. So you don't want to... I mean, hitting a green could result in being 120 feet away. And it's a lot closer than the guy that's, short of the green or whatnot. So don't want to look at greens. We're definitely going to look at scrambling, because the players who can scramble are going to be really darn good here this week. And then 3 putts, again, we'll take a look at later on. But I wanted to look at when fairways are easy to hit, who are the top off the tee players. So now let's get into a few of some new metrics and start really digging into stuff that we didn't look at last night. And I'm going to bring, we're going to go to birdies and bogeys. But first, let's go to the 2015 Open Championship leaderboard, again at St. Andrews when Zach Johnson beat Louis and Mark Leishman in a playoff. You can see here, hitting the fairways, always easy. And this is another reason why I'm starting to think that it might not be difficult, even if the wind does pick up, because these scores are pretty indicative of average. Minus 15, minus 16, minus 17. They all hover in the mid-teens for winning scores. Now, the cut line, I believe, has been +2, +3, which is certainly on the harder end of average. So 2005 it was +2, then +3, and then in 2015, so the leaderboard we're looking at, the cut here was +1. So definitely average. So that's why I'm starting to really walk back or reassess that I think it's going to be difficult, because it's starting to appear that it won't be. But what we're going to do here, we're going to go through a few of these tabs in both the Scottish Open from last week and the 2015 Open Championship. First thing I will just show you, we can't really do anything with strokes gained, and you know that every single player didn't gain 0.05 on the putting green. So it's not as simple as just taking the total minus tee to green, because it's the same for everybody, 0.05. So with that, we're going to go into a few of these more precise tabs. We'll start with the birdies and bogeys. And another reason why I'm starting to believe that this is going to be more average than, say, difficult. Here is the 2015 leaderboard, and you see, obviously, the players that are highest in terms of the final leaderboard. They're gaining their birdies. They're avoiding the bogeys. Now, Danny Willett and Ashley Chesters were the only two that seemed like they were gaining ground with eagles. But when you sort on these two statistics, let's start with birdies gained. So you've got a 9.2 at the start, or at the top of the birdies gained. And when you look at the leaderboard, when you're sorted, you've got a top 5, a top 15. Then winner, your 2 playoff participants, top 10, top 30, middling, clunker. So decent amount of correlation here, not the absolute strongest, but decent. And then remember, there's a 9.2 at the top. Whereas if you look at bogeys, 7.2 is the top, so it's not an astronomical amount of difference, but it's not nothing either. So birdies are leading in terms of the highest value gained. And look at this, the comparison between the top of the birdies gained leaderboard and the bogeys avoided. So you've got a top 5, but then a clunker, one of the playoff representatives or playoff participants, top 10, top 15, clunker already. So we've already had 3 clunkers of made cuts before we even got to 1 from the birdies gained. And then you have a miscut up here as well from the bogeys avoided. Now he apparently double bogeyed quite a bit, Jaco van Zyl. So this is just another reason why I think I am reassessing that it's going to be average as opposed to difficult. So we're definitely going to be wanting to look at birdies gained this week for the Open Championship. And just because I'm curious, I haven't even looked at the Scottish Open statistics because of other things going on, putting my wagers in, still fumbling with behind the stream stuff. I kind of want to take a look and see what happened last week with birdies and bogeys, because it was all difficult last week at the Scottish Open. So If we sort on birdies, well, let's just take a quick look here. Looks to be about even. Let's see, we've got the top 23 here because of ties. You've got 4 guys that were negative in birdies, 2 in bogeys, but they were pretty close to field average. So let's sort. All right, birdies gained, the top number is an 8. You've got a 2nd, a 10th, winner, 6, 6, 30, 10th, 16th. A couple of miscuts up here, but decent, fairly decent. Bogeys, so 7.5. What was the top of the birdies? 8. So very, very similar here, but it looks like the bogeys avoided were stronger because you don't have a lot of you don't have a miscut until Billy Horschel way down here, but your first really even clunker of a finish is what, maybe 15 down. Now Matt Kuchar is certainly middling, but it's still, a middling made cut. But you have a lot of consistent, top 20s. You got a few top 5s and 10s in here. Looks like bogeys avoided was the more important last week at the Scottish Open, which generally leads me, or at least it's my assumption, is that when a course is difficult, you want to avoid the bogeys as opposed to get the birdies. But that certainly is not the case every time. But we're seeing here, at least from 2015, that the birdies gained were the bigger factor. So now let's come to the field for this year, 2022 Open. We're going to take a whole lot of look at things in here. Definitely not going to look at anything in relation to par. Again, I just think I'm reassessing how difficult it's going to be. So instead, let's take a look at a couple of things first. When fairways are easy to hit. We'll go back to 1-1-21. When fairways are easy to hit, the top opportunities gained players, you've got Rory, Luke List, Jordan Spieth, Victor Hovland, Justin Thomas, Mito, Xander, Corey Connors, Jon Rahm, and Keegan Bradley. We saw, at least in the 2015 leaderboard, that the Eagles weren't really all that much of a factor. One of the par 5s is generally a true 3-shot par 5. That's 534. Now, they do have a 604-yard par 5, here at St. Andrews. That's the one that's the 3-shotter. But there is a very short one at 534, the par 5 5th. It plays to almost a half a shot under par. So you're definitely going to get your birdie. It yields an eagle at about 2.7%. It's not nothing, but it's certainly not astronomical, at least by a par 5 standards. So I don't think birdies are better are going to be the thing again. I think it's just going to be birdies gained. So your top birdies gained players when fairways are easy to hit since the start of 2021. Rory, Victor Hovland, Scotty Scheffler, Bryson, Cam Smith, Cameron Young, Xander Schauffele, JT, Seamus Power, and Harold Varner III. First time we've said him tonight. Interesting stuff here. Let's see. Guys that have given themselves a lot of opportunities but haven't converted them. That's always a combination that I really try to focus on, because if we know that they are able to give themselves opportunities but haven't converted them, all it takes is a hot putter. Now, yes, sometimes you have a Luke List, a Hideki, a Sergio that's just not a good putter. Understandable. But even Colin Morikawa, who is notoriously a pretty poor putter, can spike. And when he does, he generally wins or competes, especially in the highest of quality of fields. I mean, he gained 7 at the Genesis and runner-up to Joaquin Niemann. But, I mean, you see, statistically, he's just not a good putter. The Memorial last year, he gained 5.5, came in second. The Open Championship, when he won, we don't have those statistics, but you'd have to think that he putt very well at it. So, again, that's why I'm just not a big believer in putting as a skill set that is indicative of long-term success. Now, certainly you have guys that develop patterns like Denny McCarthy and Adam Hadwin. They can make up for a lot of flaws in their other parts of their game. But in the terms of opportunities gained and converting, it just takes a hot putter. Like Jason Kokrak, we've seen that he can get hot with a putter. He can spike 4.5, almost 5, 4, almost 9. So he can at least get hot with a putter. So all these other players, like Thomas Detry, he probably doesn't have enough rounds for us to evaluate whether he can spike or not. But you see, he's generally, I guess, been a pretty good putter. Most of the events that he has played on the PGA Tour don't collect the stats. But the ones that do, he's been a pretty good putter. Okay. So anyway, some of these players, when fairways are easy to hit, that are giving themselves opportunities and not converting, Jason Kokrak, Thomas Detry, you got Chris Kirk, Mark Leishman. So few of the names there if you want to take a look at those. Now I'm going to do the same thing for when it's windy. So moderate and windy conditions. And I'm going to have to bring that in to September 13th just to make it the PGA Tour season. So your top opportunities gained players in windy conditions. Those players are Cameron Smith, Justin Thomas, Hideki, Mito, Victor Hovland, Cameron Young, Jordan Spieth, Keegan Bradley, Tom Hoagie, and John Rahm. Of those 10, you've got a few that are also top 10 in birdies. So Cameron Smith in the wind, first in opportunities, first in birdies gained. Justin Thomas second and fourth. Hideki second and 10th. Victor's 5th and 8th. Cameron Young 5th and 3rd. John Rahm 10th and 9th. Again, looking at the top opportunities gained players and players who don't convert them. Tom Hoagie, 9th in opportunities, but 61st in birdies gained. Let's see, you've got Morikawa, 11th and 77th. Tony Finau, 14th and 57th. Try not to go too far down here. Trey Mullinax, 20th and 70th. Kitayama, 23rd and 56th. And Berger has withdrawn. So a couple of different looks here on this tab for birdies gained, opportunities. If you want to take a look at birdies are better, because eagles do happen here, you've got the finishing hole, the 18th, does yield a few eagles, and then the short par 4. So I don't think you are wrong for looking at birdies or better, but I'm definitely going to be looking at just birdies gained. I said that a couple of weeks ago, and then I changed to birdies or better. A lot of the reason I did that is because the course was easy. I think I might have done this for the John Deere, but I don't think this is going to play easy, whereas the John Deere or whatever tournament I did that for did play easy. So definitely going to be looking at birdies gained this week. That's going to do it for that tab. I'm going to bring up the fairways and greens, and we're going to look at the fairways and greens from the 2 leaderboards that I have brought up here. So this is the 2015 Open Championship. Let's see. We have distance, not necessarily the strongest of factors, although it can be, like Louis, Jason Day, Mark Leishman. They were positive, high positive, I would imagine. Zach Johnson wasn't low in distance. Let's take a look. See, Day, Louis, Rose, Koepka, Scott. So the top 5 in distance actually did all top 10. Interesting to note. You do have a couple of clunkers and then some middling finishes here, but it's more important than I thought it would have been. How about the other end? Zach Johnson, he wasn't terribly far down in the leaderboard. The winner, 21.5, but you look up here, okay, all right, so perhaps distance could be something we look at. Kind of makes sense. If fairways are easy to hit, then you want to see who's got some distance, who really takes advantage of that. As you can see here, because fairways are easy to hit, it's not really all that important, it looks like. Most guys are just clubbing down already. So, good drives. I just don't think greens are going to be that big of a factor. These greens are massive. Certainly you're going to need to hit greens, but I think the more important statistic this week will be proximity, and we don't have that because these courses aren't shot link available. So, distance will be something to take a look at for sure. Let's take a look at the Scottish from last week. We go to the fairways and greens. And let's see. You had fairways again, not really the biggest of factors. Looks like distance, lukewarm at best, I would say. Yeah, pretty lukewarm because you already have some miscuts up here, along with some clunkers, some finishes. Good drives, green. So none looked like the Scottish had much to offer there. But I am intrigued by this driving distance. So we come back to this year's field. Let's go with when fairways are easy to hit, January 1st. Your top distance players are Bryson, Wyndham Clark, Rory, Trey Mullinax, Luke List, Cameron Young, John Rahm, Brooks Koepka, Kurt Kitayama, and Keith Mitchell. So not a whole lot of change here. Some maneuvering of order. Lucas Herbert has fallen to 12th. He was in the top 10, but I distinctly remember Wyndham Clark was first. He's now second. Bryson was maybe third. He's now tied for first. Rory was up there. Mullinax was up there. List. Young was up there. Rahm, I believe, was up there. Don't think Koepka was. But there you go. I mean, it's essentially the same lot of players. But you look here, Cameron Young still still gaining fairways on the field when fairways are easy to hit. So he's long and accurate. That's very good. Rahm's the best, 7th and 15th. But some of these other players down here, Dean Burnmester, Victor Hovland, long and accurate off the tee, which is what you're going to need to be here at St. Andrews, especially when you're clubbing down. Who can get that extra 20, 30 yards with, a 3-iron or a 5-wood or whatever. So good stuff there. Wanted to make sure I had the filters the way I wanted to. So now let's take a look at sand saves with no other filters. Taking off the hitting fairways easy, taking off the windy. Now, just in pure sense of sand saves gained, your top players since the start of the PGA Tour season: Lucas Herbert, Brian Harman, Patrick Reed, Shane Lowry, Justin Thomas, Xander, Sergio, Bernd Wiesberger, Chris Kirk, and Matt Fitzpatrick. Again, Daniel Berger is withdrawn. All right. And then in the same tune, I definitely want to look at scrambling. So your top scramblers when it is, or since the start of the PGA Tour season, no other filters, just your top scramblers: Matt Fitzpatrick, Christian Bezuidenhout, Shane Lowry, Tony Finau, Harris English, Keith Mitchell, Jordan Spieth, JT Poston, Seamus Power, and Tommy Fleetwood. All right. There you go. There's a couple of those lists for you. We'll move to proximity. And again, this is about where we're going to have to stop for previous leaderboards. Even in terms of par 3s and 4s, just because the scorecard for St. Andrews lists everything at 476, we're going to have to stop there. I mean, we can take a look at total par 3s, maybe, but that's about it. Total par 3s, 4s, and 5s, and we're done with the Scottish Open. Different course, different layout, all that good stuff. So there's Windfinder for later. Now, your top proximity gained players with no filters, just total procs. Your top players are Shane Lowry, Justin Thomas, Cameron Young, Victor Hovland, Aaron Wise, Hideki, Colin Morikawa, Corey Connors, Russell Henley, and DJ. If we want to add wind, let's look at two different things here. We'll look at wind and we'll look at when fairways are easy. So in the wind, yep, plenty. So in the wind, your top proximity players: Tom Hoagie, Gary Woodland, Justin Thomas, Keegan Bradley, Cameron Young, Hideki, Mito Pereira, Emiliano Grillo, Justin Rose, and Cam Smith. First time we said Grillo tonight. Might be the first time we said Justin Rose tonight as well. All right. Now, total procs when fairways are easy to hit. And I'll have to bring this out to January 1st. And the reason why I'm using easy to hit fairways, I don't think I'm going to use that filter when we go to the mixed condition model on Wednesday night, but it is at least good conceptually to think about, because if a lot of players are hitting fairways, if these are indeed easy to hit, then you're going to want to see as uniform of a condition as you can. Whereas, if some people are, I'll put it this way, given the circumstance that the players in the fairway, hence the assumption of easy to hit fairways, of all the players that are in the fairway, given that they're in the fairway, who's getting closest to the hole? Those players are John Rahm, Emiliano Grillo, Russell Henley, Tony Finau, Colin Morikawa, Shane Lowry, Mito Pereira, Gary Woodland, Corey Connors, and Paul Casey. So you can see just the amount of difference between when it's windy versus when players are in the fairway. It can matter, and that's why it's important to really double check your filters, make sure you know exactly what you're looking at. But I mean, just this is a great example. I've just only put hitting fairways easy as opposed to just in the wind, and it can change. So interesting. Like I said, I'm not going to have any easy to hit fairway filters for the mixed condition model, but it is at least good to know, as long as guys are hitting the fairways, which most players are going to this week, who's going to be closest with proximity. Let's see. We'll take a look at 3s, 4s, and 5s. Again, we'll come back to the 2015 leaderboard. Not able to look at anything in specific length for par 3s, par 4s, and par 5s, but we can take a look at total. And I'll bring you back to the breakdown here fairly quickly. You see, we saw last night, top 10s, par 3s, barely a factor. Top 5s moved up marginally, and then the winner was negative. So doesn't look like the par 3s are going to be all that important. Again, there's only 2 par 3s on the course. So if we sort on the par 3, I mean, your top was a 4.3, but your second place performer, your second best performer on par 3s in 2015 missed the cut. The 5th best performer on par 3s missed the cut. And then you have a bunch of missed cuts down here. So not really terribly important. Not really at all. So instead of going to strokes gained par 3, both of the par 3s fall between 175 and 200. You have a 190-yard par 3 and a 181 yard par 3. Are they going to move maybe one time into here and one time into here? Sure. But for the most part, the par 3s are going to be in this range. So make sure you take off the filters. More so talking to myself, but make sure you take off the filters. Since the start of the PGA Tour season, your top performers on par 3s from 175 to 200 yards. Those players are Keegan Bradley, Shane Lowry, Joaquin Neiman, Aaron Wise, Kurt Kitayama, Siwoo Kim, Rory McIlroy, Cam Smith, Sepp Straka, and Ryan Fox. All right. Not much analysis to go into. Like I said, both par 3s are in this length. Is what it is. I'll bring this to the par 4s. Let's take a look at the par 4s from 2015. You can see, 13.7 here from Jordan Spieth, 11, a 10. If we sort on par 4s, just extreme. There's 14 par 4s here. So, just in order. Top 5 winner, your 2 playoffs, top 10, top 5, top 10, 10, 20, 10, 15, 20. I mean, it's going to be extremely important. Obvious statements are obvious, but we're going to take a look at a couple of different things here. We're going to look at par 4s. We're going to look at 350 to 400, and we're going to look at 400 to 450. So, your top par 4 performers since the start of the PGA Tour season. Just no other filters, no specific range, just par 4s. Rory, Matt Fitzpatrick, Shane Lowry, Xander, JT, Jordan Spieth, Tony Finau, Will Zalatoris, Scotty Scheffler, and JT Poston. All right. Now, if we take a look at par 3s, 350 to 400, there are 6 of them. 6 in this range. It's going to be very important to be good at this range of par 4s. So, on par 4s that measure from 350 to 400 yards since the start of the PGA Tour season, your top performers are Will Zalatoris, Sergio, Rory, Justin Rose, Louis Oosthuizen, Emiliano Grillo, DJ, Matt Fitzpatrick, Justin Thomas, and Xander. All right. Let's see. And then in the 400 to 450, just trying to do a quick count here. That's 1, 2, 3. So not as many as I thought. I don't know. I think I'm just going to stick to these 2. I'm going to put a lot of emphasis in strokes gained par 4, a lot of emphasis in this one, in this length, since 6 of them fall between this range. But I don't know if there's going to be, because there's only 1 in this range. There's 1 in this range. So what's that? 1, 7, 8. So 3 and 3. 3 in the 400 to 450, 3 in the 450 to 500. So, all right. And then lastly, move to par 5s. We'll check the 2015 leaderboard here. It doesn't look like there's going to be much. 4.8 is the highest. But, I mean, even so, you had a couple of... So, Lee Westwood was a middling finish. Daniel Berger missed the cut. Thomas Bjorn and J.B. Holmes missed the cut. And they were pretty strong performers in par 5s. So, probably not all that important, to be honest. Probably not all that important. But we'll take a look. So, your top par 5 performers since the start of the PGA Tour season. You got Scotty Scheffler, Sam Burns, Rory, Jordan Spieth, Matt Fitzpatrick, Keith Mitchell, Patrick Cantlay, Shane Lowry, JT, and Cameron Smith. All right. So the last thing we're going to do, we're going to take a look at putting, like I mentioned, and we're going to close out of the 2015 leaderboard. Again, just no putting statistics, so don't have much to look at there. Putting, and we're definitely going to need to put bent. So we looked at strokes gained total putting. We saw 3-putt avoidance is a big factor. So make sure, I think we went back to 1-1-21 for bent just to make sure we had enough rounds for players. So your top 3-putt avoiders on bent greens since January 1st of 2021. Those players are Tony Finau, Wyndham Clark, Xander, Joaquin Niemann, Seamus Power, John Rahm, Terrell Hatton, Abraham Ancer, Justin Rose, and Harold Varner III. So this explains a lot of Tony Finau's success. And we'll head to that tab here in a bit. Xander has played the Open Championship well. He's just not 3-putting. Rahm, Hatton, Ancer, Patrick Reed, these guys they just don't 3-putt. They just don't 3-putt. They don't take themselves out of tournaments. So there's a look at this year's field in terms of specific filters and stats and all that stuff. We'll take a quick look at the tournament history. We looked at this last night as well, but I didn't bring it over into Excel and make the color-coded chart or anything like that because the Open Championship is a rota, so this is not obviously always at St. Andrews. But the players who have played the Open Championship well, your most strokes gained total is Henrik Stenson. He has 3 top 20s in the middling, pretty darn good. Jordan Spieth. Now I wish I would have kept the 3-putt thing up. But I mean, you see Tony Finau, 4th in strokes gained total. He just does not 3-putt. Xander, a little bit further down here, but, runner-up, top 20, middling. But he doesn't 3-putt. Patrick Reed doesn't 3-putt. Tyrrell Hatton doesn't 3-putt. So, yeah, all these players, like Eric Van Rooyen, he wasn't in the top 10, but I saw him fairly close. He doesn't 3-putt. Cantley. So, here is the look at the players who perform just well at Open Championships. Again, Zach Johnson, your semi-defending champion. The last time it was played at St. Andrews, your defending champion. Although your real defending champion is Colin Morikawa. Let's see. On the other end of the spectrum, anybody jump off the page like Billy Horschel, 0 for 3. Bryson, 1 for 3 with a middling. Munoz, 0 for 1. Sungjae, 0 for 1. Fratelli, 1 for 3. Sean Norris, 1 for 3. Ian Poulter, surprisingly. He was all or nothing. They have dropped off one of these years. He's all or nothing. He has a top 15. I think the other one's a top 20, and then 2 missed cuts. Emiliano Grillo, 1 for 4. It was a top 15 and 3 missed cuts. Let's see. Bernd Wiesberger, 2 for 3, but clunker, miscut, and a middling. Russell Henley, 1 for 3. Ernie Els, 2 for 4. Brian Harmon, 0 for 3. Answer, 0 for 2. Louis, 2 for 4. Interesting. Siwoo, 1 for 3. So there's a look at some of the guys. Oh, sorry. I just realized. Cam Smith, negative in terms of strokes gained total for Open Championships. Now he's gotten progressively better. Miscut, and then a clunker, and then a top 20. I don't know how much that is going to matter, but something to take a look at, I guess. So that's going to do that. I think the last thing we're going to end on is looking at Windfinder. So I will say, I looked at Windfinder last week. I was incorrect in interpreting it, even though Windfinder said there wasn't going to be a lot of wind. There was going to. I prefaced that because there doesn't look to be a lot of wind projected this week for the first 3 days at St. Andrews. Now, with that said, it's Scotland. The wind's probably going to pick up. So I am not going to do anything with it. That's why I was focusing so much on wind tonight, because I got burned by it last week. So I'm going to go with the assumption that the wind's going to pick up. And we'll definitely check this on Wednesday during the DFS Tactics show. Make sure that we see what we saw, what we see, now is what we see then. But even so, I saw very little wind the night of the Scottish Open, and it turned out that it was pretty windy. So I'm showing it to you just to give you the information. Right now, it doesn't say there's a lot of wind. I don't believe it, because it's Scotland. There's going to be wind. But there you go. So that's going to do it for the data dive tonight. Again, not a whole lot that we can really dig into in terms of historical St. Andrews data. But hopefully I've given you some ideas as you continue on in your research this week, where you might want to put some focus, maybe some players that piqued your interest that you want to investigate a little more. A reminder that the Barracuda full show will be tomorrow night. The initial research, the data dive, and the DFS Tactics. It is a modified stable for format, so we're not going to be able to do too much in terms of data. But we'll definitely look at a few metrics, have the mixed condition model, and then try to conquer the alternate field tournament as well this week. But that's going to do it again for the Data Dive show for the Open Championship. Thanks for tuning in and watching. I really do appreciate it. Again, like I said at the beginning of the show, I reached 1,000 viewing hours I can't express enough gratitude to you all that you continue to support the channel, watch, interact, chat, and all that. So really, really thank you for all of the wagers that you made so far this week at the Open Championship, for all of the wagers you're thinking about making this week at the Open Championship. And until I see you tomorrow night for the Barracuda Full Show, may all your bets be profitable.